Hi, I'm Rob Scherer, the president and founder of Tag, an outsourced accounting firm, and Sage Construction Software Partner. When I was taking getting my MBA at San Diego State, my final project was to do either a culminating project or a thesis, and I chose to do the culminating project, which was create my business plan for Tag. And the reason I started Tag was, or I wanted to do that was, I saw a need in the marketplace for the small, medium-sized contractors to have the accounting, reporting, the processes in place necessary for them to compete with the larger contractors out there. My initial tagline was, Tag will be your management advantage. And that means that when we go into a company, a small, medium-sized construction company, we want to be able to help you build out your procedures, processes, and the reporting so that you can compete with your larger competitors in this space, and we would be able to build up that accounting and software part of your business. Construction, in contract administration, change orders, kind of a do-whatever kid in the accounting department. And then I worked my way up to CFO. It was a great background, I think, because a lot of people in accounting and finance don't have the experience of being out in the field and seeing what actually happens when you're trading crane time for six-packs and all these inappropriate things. And by being in a lot of those change order meetings, I really got to get the sense of the construction industry. Where I worked, it was one of the largest steel contractors in the country. It was involved in commercial, residential, material sales. We had fabrication plants, we had manufacturing facilities. So in hindsight, I didn't realize at the time it was a great background to go into starting Tag and working with a variety of different contractors and frankly a variety of different industries. With most of the new clients we go into, it seems like they want to run before they walk. They want to do all these cool forecasting, budgeting, labor production reports, and all those things are great, but a lot of times when we go in there, we really have to scale it back and say, let's put the fundamentals in place, because before you can do all that cool stuff, you have to first do, and I explain this to people, how it's very anticlimactic when we go in, but we can talk about those things. You want to figure out what you want to do, but you want to scale it back, because all those things happen once you find the best way to input your accounts payable, vendor invoices, how you collect your time in the field, and then you can turn that data into information, and then you can start building out really cool reports. So it's usually, let's break it down first, and then we'll go to the next step. So the answer to that comes from two different areas. The first answer is, and this is what you read in books, you'll hear if you go to a webinar at the AGC, where once we have weekly reporting, we can know how the job is going, we can see how our labor is performing, we can see if we're doing change order work outside the scope, and we can meet with the general contractor or the developer, whoever our customer is, and that's all true. But the real thing, the real benefit you get out of that weekly reporting and more frequent reporting is when you create that culture of accountability. And when you go into, if it's a construction company, a real estate company, even if it's a manufacturing company, you have the three types of employees. You have the A employees, they're the high performers, they do well no matter what. And then you have your C performers, which as soon as you know you have them, you try to get them out of your company, they play in the cracks, they're never accountable. And then you have the Bs. The Bs make up the bulk of your population. Those B employees, once they're held to a more frequent reporting and accountability standards, they're the ones that improve. They're the ones that go up 5%, 10%, and that's where the whole culture of the company can change through that more frequent reporting. So there's a lot of things you can look at. I usually break it down into three. The first thing is the industry. Again, this doesn't apply to just construction, but whatever industry you're in, look at the software and find a software that specializes in your industry or has a niche in your industry. And or in construction, it's not only your industry, but your trade, your whatever it is. The second thing is the company. What is the software company? Especially in this day and age where you see a lot of new companies popping up with a cloud product or this or that, and then you find out that they haven't been in the industry that long. They may not have the financial resources to continually improve that product. So I would look at the company itself. How long have they been around? What kind of support do they give the product? What kind of continual improvement do they make to that product over the long term? The last thing is the team that's going to implement it. Again, whether it's local, whether it's remote, wherever it is, that team is going to have a lot to do with how well your implementation goes, their experience with that product, their experience with your trade, and how they're going to work with your internal team. Because your internal team is really the champion that makes it work, but the external resources you work with, they're going to probably work with you for a long time, and that's going to be your long-term partner, because the transition goes, there's an initial project, but then there's ongoing improvement to your product. So when we first got involved in the accounting world years ago, we would go into a lot of contractors and they'd work with a variety of different software platforms. More and more with the construction companies and the real estate developers we worked with, we ran into Timberline, now Sage 300. And over time we found out that Sage Timberline and Sage 300 was an industry leader back then. It's still an industry leader, and that's why we chose that. Once we became a part of the Sage family, we also found ourselves working with Sage 100 Contractor, which was then called Master Builder. And when Sage acquired Master Builder, they took a good sound product, but then they poured a lot of development dollars into it and really made it a best of class for the small, medium-sized contractor out there. The last thing that in hindsight has worked out quite well, the people at Sage, again, we started with Timberline up in Beaverton, Oregon years ago, and we've worked with them over 15 years. And a lot of the same people I dealt with on my first call to Timberline are still working at Sage today. And it's nice to have those relationships, and they can tell you about the product roadmaps, where the product's going, and it's just been a great partnership all these years.